All right, so a couple of days ago, I made a video that was about Joe Biden going and meeting with the other G7 countries, mainly Western wealthy imperialist countries in Europe. And basically, they decided at the end of it that they were going to donate like 600 million new doses of coronavirus to the rest of the developing world, which is suffering right now due to the actions of these wealthy Western imperialist countries who are choosing to protect big pharmaceutical patents over literally millions of lives. So just to put this in perspective as to how far behind we are right now on vaccinating the entire population of the world, a recent analysis by a coalition of humanitarian groups estimated that at the current pace, it would take low-income countries 57 fucking years to fully inoculate their populations against the virus. 57 years. Okay, so we are nowhere close to being on track right now to vaccinating the entire world in any meaningful capacity whatsoever. So I'm bringing you this article by Common Dreams because this poll that they're displaying here absolutely blew my mind. I know that this is a popular issue and railing against big pharmaceutical companies. Who the fuck likes big pharma? But 94% of Americans oppose big pharma's control of global COVID-19 vaccine doses. So this is bipartisan. I'm going to read you the details in a minute here, but understand that these same arguments that I've been making throughout the entire course of this pandemic, it seems like, about relinquishing the vaccine patents, these things are now being backed up by polling data that shows that not only are these things morally correct, not only are they to the benefit of our economy, not only are they to the benefit of us diplomatically, but relinquishing the vaccine patents is also something that the American people support overwhelmingly. So here are some of the details that they talk about here. So a new poll released Friday found that a whopping 94% of adults in the U.S. do not want pharmaceutical corporations to control the global supply of COVID-19 vaccines, lending additional support to international demands for achieving universal access to inoculation through more knowledge sharing, technology transfer, and public production of doses. That 94% figure includes respondents who expressed no preference, and it revealed a strong bipartisan consensus with 96% of Biden voters and 92% of Trump voters in agreement. So this is something that goes across the board, right? I've actually seen a lot of conservatives, all of these ridiculous freak show conservative talk pundits or political commentators, even Ben Shapiro sometimes, or, the Steven Crowders of the world who try to be nominally anti-establishment. And they'll bring up these anti-big pharma talking points. Of course, they do it in the totally wrong direction. They come to the wrong conclusions. But this shows you that there is bipartisanship among the American people as to how they are rejecting the monopolistic control by these big pharmaceutical companies to have this much control over public health. And so we as socialists and as leftists have a responsibility to take control over this narrative and make sure that people understand the solution to these problems is to get rid of the profit motive within our healthcare system in general, but especially within the big pharmaceutical industry. There is no benefit to having a big pharmaceutical companies or to having a profit motive in big pharmaceuticals at all whatsoever. Conservatives will commonly come back at that talking point and say, oh, well, you're going to stifle innovation. No, big pharmaceutical companies, the boards of directors, the CEOs, the structure of the corporate side of this do not innovate. They buy innovations. The people who are doing innovations are the scientists. And guess who else can fund scientists and often does fund scientists? The government, okay? Many of these, including these vaccines that we're talking about here, as well as pretty much every other modern drug that we have right now, was at least developed in large part with public funding. Then these big pharmaceutical companies and executives come in and they buy up the property rights to then price gouge the rest of the American people. So again, we as American socialists need to make sure that we have control over this narrative and make people understand that the solution to the problems within our big pharmaceutical industry is to nationalize big pharma, okay? Nationalize it. We're already investing our public funds in this, and then we are being price gouged on the back end. It doesn't make any sense from any perspective. But in addition to that, there are obviously the consequences of suffering from not vaccinating the rest of the world. And I made these arguments repeatedly over and over and over again. If you don't vaccinate entire continents like Africa, guess what's going to happen? COVID is going to continue to spread, and then new variants will pop up, and eventually a variant will pop up, as we have seen even recently with the new Delta variant, that could potentially undermine our vaccines that we have had here in the United States and make all of this progress that we have made domestically completely void and pointless. And so it makes no sense from, again, an economic perspective, because you have all of these countries around the world that the United States relies on exploiting that are not going to recover economically. It doesn't make sense from a diplomatic perspective, because all of these other countries look at us as if we are protecting the bottom line of these big pharma companies at the expense of public health. It doesn't make sense from literally any other perspective, including now, according to this polling data, it doesn't make sense from even a political perspective. So this is an overwhelmingly popular issue that we as the leftists, as leftist communities, or even the Democratic Party has the opportunity to take control of. Will they? Obviously not. We have Joe Biden in the White House. We have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer leading the Democratic Party. These are people who serve the interests of the big pharmaceutical companies, but still, we as American leftists, the squad, other progressives who have these same values as us, need to take control of this narrative and make sure people understand the solution to these types of problems, not just for right now and doing things like supporting the TRIPS waiver to get rid of the COVID vaccine patents, which is obviously important and needs to be done right now, but it's not just about that. It's about completely taking away the profit motive from this entire industry as a whole so that the next pandemic that rolls around, we don't have this same problem, or for any illness whatsoever, that we don't have this same problem where Americans are going bankrupt because they're being price gouged by these big pharmaceutical companies. So the answer, yet again, is nationalize big pharma.